It started with an audition. A strange girl in a pink tracksuit walked in to try out to be a singer for an indie band that was really going nowhere. She was surrounded by a bunch of guys, all guys who just laughed at her, mockingly. However, this girl had a secret weapon, one of the most powerful and recognizable voices of a generation. That would be years in the future. But a few minutes later, these jokers were picking their jaws up off the floor. She could really sing, but could she write? This band sent her home with the music to a song they'd written, and they wanted to see what this rookie could do. The only thing is, she'd never actually written a song before. She came back a few days later with a song filled with infatuation, deception, betrayal, blind devotion, and a tranquility in the delivery that would put them at the top of the charts. The only thing is, the song bombed when it was first released. The band was afraid their label was going to drop them. But what happened next would change the fortunes of this band forever. The story's coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you want to be part of a premier music community that curates the best of the rock and roll era through interviews, stories, history, the whole shebang, make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the big red button and click the bell so you always know when our latest and greatest is coming out. We also have a Patreon. You're going to want to check that out. You can find more content that helps us keep it a daily channel. You can also become an honorary producer to help us curate this music history. It's time for another edition of our show, Breakthrough. In this show, we break down songs, albums, or events that kicked open the door to an artist or band's career and gave them the momentum to rocket to long-term success. On today's episode, we celebrate a singer who still haunts us with her unparalleled and truly unique voice. Just gone too soon. Talking about Dolores O'Riordan and the Cranberries and their 1993 record, Everybody Else Is Doing It, So Why Can't We? More specifically, the timeless track, Linger. Formed in Limerick, Ireland in 1989, the initial lineup of the Cranberries consisted of teenage brothers Noel and Mike Hogan on guitar and bass. Fergal Lawler, he was behind the drum kit, and lead singer Niall Quinn. Back then, they were actually known by the cringeworthy name The Cranberry Sauce, as in the cranberry sauce. However, by 1990, Quinn had quit, leaving his bandmates without a lead singer. So for a while, the trio focused on writing instrumentals, if you can imagine that. Though by their own admission, they were pretty terrible at this point. That was all about to change, though. It's all thanks to an 18-year-old country girl named Dolores O'Riordan. Raised in the rural town of Ballybricken, Dolores was classically trained on piano and had been singing since the age of 4. As a teenager, she had won competitions for her solos in both her church and school choirs. By age 16, she was listening to bands like The Smiths and The Cure, R.E.M., Depeche Mode. And though she was small and shy, her voice, it was huge and powerful. Anyone who knew her knew that her music was her calling card. So it was with no small measure of confidence that Dolores auditioned for the Cranberry Sauce. It was actually a Sunday afternoon. She was dressed in a pink tracksuit. She walked into the room with a Yamaha keyboard under her arm. Completely out of her element, she discovered 9 teenage boys in the room. 3 were members of the band, and the other were 6 of their closest friends. Said O'Riordan, I quote, "They were all laughing at me, and I was really embarrassed because there were about 9 fellas in the room, and I was this girl from the country. Mike kept asking me who I thought I was. They were all Limerick boys, and they expected girls to have nice clothes and to be sexy. They weren't the kind of guys that I normally hang around with at all." End of quote. But you know what? Dolores wasn't intimidated. Rather, she was determined to prove herself. She knew the moment she started singing, their jaws would hit the floor. And of course, it was true. Everyone, and I mean everyone, was blown away. And they heard this beautiful voice. Said Nolan, I quote, "She was so small and quiet. Then she opened her mouth and this amazing voice, this huge voice came out for the size of her. But even though they now knew she could sing, they still needed to know if she could write. They needed somebody to help write. So the band played a few songs for Dolores, including a rudimentary version of Linger that was no more than a bare-bones instrumental on acoustic guitar. They handed her a cassette with the song on it, and they challenged her to finish it. Said Noel, I knew about 5 chords and 4 of them were probably in Linger, and that was about all Dolores had to work with. So O'Riordan took the tape home, and though she had never ever written the song before, she finished it in just a matter of a couple days. Not only did she write the lyrics, she also composed the song's dreamy string line on her keyboard and gave it a melody, while she was at it. When Dolores returned with Linger later that week, there was no doubt. She could sing and she could compose. The guys had found their new lead singer. What's even more amazing is that this demo version of Linger was, in Noel's words, very, very close to the cut that they would later put on their debut album. I mean, this girl was talented. Soon after O'Riordan joined the band, the 4 teamed up with manager-producer Pierce Gilmore of Zurich Studios, that was in Limerick, to record a series of EPs. Notable among them was 1990's Water Circle, which included 2 future Cranberry tracks, Sunday and Linger. I don't know where I stand, do you have to hold my hand? Soon the band started to generate a buzz around Ireland and in London. In 1991, the foursome played at the University of Limerick, attracting 1,400 students and 30-something A&R men. The performance led to a label bidding war, with Island Records coming out on top and the band changing their name to just the Cranberries. For their first full-length album, the Cranberries turned to the expertise of producer Stephen Street. Of course, Street had worked with the Smiths and the Psychedelic Furs, to name a few. Said Noel, when Island signed us, we asked if we could work with Stephen Street because he was the Smiths producer and we all loved him. In the studio, I kept thinking, he used to sit with Johnny Marr and now he sat with me. I tried to play it cool, but I couldn't help myself. I started grilling him about the Smiths. Let's just say that it was a really good match. The album was fittingly titled Everybody Else Is Doing It, So Why Can't We? Now, reportedly, Dolores came up with the name of the album after seeing an unpopular indie band sell out a venue. And she just thought, if they can do it, why not us? The title perfectly expressed the band's determination to really succeed. Why shouldn't a band from a small city in Ireland make a great record and conquer the world over? However, when they released the album on March 1st, 1993, it completely bombed. So did the initial releases of the record's 2 singles, Dreams and Linger. Never quite as it seemed, but it makes sense. Said Stephen Street about it, and I quote, "It was very frustrating because the first single we put out was Dreams, which everyone now thinks of as a pop classic. But at the time, it was completely ignored. So Linger came out, and because Dreams had been ignored, no one wanted to make much notice of it either. So there's the first 2 songs from the album, which have gone on to become absolute kind of classic hits, but at the time, no one really wanted to take any notice of it." End of quote. The muted reaction, I had the band worried that their career was already over before it had begun. Their album had come out and basically disappeared without a trace. They really thought it was just a matter of time before Island Records called them and told them it was all over. And predictably, the label did call them. But their message was the opposite of what the band expected. Island told them to get to America ASAP. Linger had become an underground hit. It was blowing up all over college radio. So the very next day, the Cranberries hopped on a plane to the States, and after that, everything changed. Their first gig was in Denver, opening for The. When they walked on stage that night, everybody was singing along to their songs. Everybody knew their songs. As the Cranberries toured the U.S., their record sales continued to climb. 40,000 a week. And it was 50,000, then 70,000. The Cranberries were starting to sell albums by the truckload. You got me wrapped around your finger. Linger, which had originally been released on February 23rd, 1993, finally started building momentum on the Hot 100 before it peaked at number 8 on May 27th, 1994. It did even better on the US Alternative Airplay chart. It topped out at number 4. Internationally, it was a big hit as well. It reached number 14 in the UK, number 7 in the Netherlands, number 6 in Iceland, number 4 in Canada, number 3 in Australia, and in their home country of Ireland. It was taking the world by storm. The album's success, that followed soon after. It hit number 1 in both Ireland and the UK, and it broke the top 20 in America. Worldwide, it would sell more than 6 million copies. Do you have to let it linger? Now, as we further break down this song, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. You know how many viewers I've heard from that have tried Zenni from this channel? I'm telling you, over the last few months, hundreds. I get emails, I get comments. I keep hearing the same thing. You guys love it. So much great feedback, and really what's not to love? The price is perfect. You have your ability to choose your own design, what looks good on you, and they deliver them right to your door. You can see what you look like before you buy. Check it out. Click on our link right up here so that you can get Zenni today.
But you always really knew. I just wanna be with you.
So while a lot of people think of Linger as a heartbreaking song, O'Riordan would say that she simply thought of it as a love song. All relationships house a complexity of emotions, and just because Linger doesn't end well, doesn't mean it can't be a love song. Featuring a multiplicity of themes. Infatuation, betrayal, deception, and blind devotion. Linger tells the tale of a lover desperately in love in spite of being wounded and outright rejected. Dolores, who was speaking from experience, said, and I quote, "Linger was the first song we wrote. I wrote about being rejected. I never imagined that it would become such a big song. It was inspired by a night I had at a club called Madonna's. This guy asked me to dance, and I thought he was lovely. He gave me my first proper kiss, and I did indeed have to let it linger. I couldn't wait to see him again. But at the next disco, he walked straight past me and asked my friend to dance. I was devastated. Everyone saw me being dumped publicly. Everything's so dramatic when you're 17, so I poured it into this song." End of quote. In '94, Dolores added, and I quote, "That case of falling in love really, it was just a matter of 2 kisses. The song Linger was written about that, and it's lovely because it captures that time of innocence for me."
Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to?
The whole episode seems like your typical teenage drama, really. Where you obsess over somebody for a long time, whether or not you were actually in the relationship. But still, it was all very real to Dolores, who had little experience with boys at that point. She despaired for a few months over the incident and swore off men, I guess. O'Riordan confessed to crying when she wrote the song, but the act of writing it proved to be cathartic, therapeutic even. For the rest of us who have been there, all of us have. The song does the same thing. It's the perfect salve for unrequited love, right? Noel called it a very honest song that a lot of people could relate to. He also said, "I think if songs speak to people on a certain level, they tend to be the songs that last with people. It reminds them of a time, and I think that's why Linger clicked."
Do you have to let it linger?
And you think about it, Dolores' devastating portrayal of a one-sided love affair. It just cuts you to the center, man. It just cuts you to the core. Overflowing with raw, unrestrained emotion. Linger is bittersweetly beautiful. Your heart simultaneously aches and soars. It's one of those songs that makes sadness completely alluring. Plain and simple, Linger is a haunted love song. It has us chasing the ghosts of a failed relationship. But it's mesmerizing. Not only thanks to its music and lyrics, but because of O'Riordan's unmatched voice. This woman could do it all, from the banshee-like wails of Zombie to the yearning yodels of Dreams. But here in Linger, her voice is achingly vulnerable. It's heartfelt. So years later, after Linger had blown up on the airwaves, the guy who Dolores wrote Linger about, he actually sent her a letter. He told her that he knew the song was about him. He apologized, said he never meant to hurt her feelings, and he asked if they could meet up. But of course, at this point, the Cranberries had reached worldwide fame. The timing was a little suspect. Dolores didn't give the letter a second thought. She said to herself, "It's too late, you dumped me." She never replied. Helping to propel Linger's success was its moody, really mysterious music video. Of course, MTV played it in heavy rotation. Directed by Melody McDaniel, the promo was shot in grayscale, and it was a tribute to the 1965 sci-fi noir film Alphaville.
Je suis avec vous, j'ai peur.
Vous avez peur de quoi?
The whole video, it's dark, it's veiled in shadow. I mean, it's a perfect match for the song in tone and a way that few videos are. According to Noel, one of their heroes, Michael Stipe, came to the video shoot. Then the next thing they knew, the Cranberries were on tour with their heroes, REM. Said, "No, I remember being at this massive gig. There was like 50,000 people, and thinking not so long ago I was in my parents' kitchen. It was an unbelievable time for the foursome."
Do you have to let it linger? Do you have to? Do you have to?
Since those days, Linger has continued to make its mark appearing in movies, television shows, and video games, including Community, Hindsight, The Bachelorette, NCIS.
And I bet hired an Irish singer.
I love how they use it in Adam Sandler, Click. Not only featured a cameo of Dolores singing, but it also helped convince her to make a musical comeback after she'd stepped away from the industry for a time.
Got me wrapped around your finger.
Linger has also been covered by Kelly Clarkson, Simon Le Bon, 10,000 Maniacs, David Cook, and Arcade Fire. And of course, nobody touches O'Riordan.
You've got me wrapped around your finger.
Fast forward to January 15, 2018. On this tragic day, O'Riordan was found unresponsive in the bathroom of her London hotel room, and she was pronounced dead. According to the coroner, Dolores drowned in the bathtub following sedation by alcohol intoxication. There was no evidence that it was anything other than just a horrible accident. She was only 46. Following Dolores' death, the Cranberries would call it quits, but not before finalizing an album that featured O'Riordan's last work. It was called In the End. Said Noel, "The Cranberries, it's the four of us. Without Dolores, I don't see the point of doing this, and neither do the boys." O'Riordan left behind a larger-than-life legacy that no shy girl from a small town in Ireland could have ever dreamed possible. She put together a phenomenal career. Fronting the Cranberries, she tallied 8 studio albums, 6 EPs, 3 live albums, and 7 greatest hits collections. Altogether, the band has released more than 20 singles, 8 of which broke the top 15 on the US alternative charts. Now, as a solo artist, Dolores also released 2 additional albums. Collectively, her works boast more than 40 million copies sold around the world. You know, when it comes to the Billboard Hot 100, none of the Cranberries singles ever surpassed the top 10 hit Linger. It's the one song that all of their success can all be traced back to. It was the first one written and the first one to break through in America. 30 plus years later, Linger has continued as a worldwide smash. It's accumulated over 1 billion streams on YouTube and Spotify.
Do you have to? Do you have to let it linger?
Reflecting on the importance of Linger, Noel Hogan said, "It's only since Dolores has passed away that he's really started to fully appreciate it. For a long time, he saw it as just another track in their set list. But now when he listens to it, he realizes how much he undervalued it. He said, and I quote, "We must have played it a gazillion times in our lives, and it just becomes a part of the set. But it's really different now. We're so lucky to have left that behind, to have that legacy. And the rest of us are so lucky to have heard it." Rest in peace, Dolores. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about the Cranberries and Linger. What are your memories of the song of their debut album? It's just such a great band. I just love Dolores. What an incredible voice. Let's have a great discussion below about all of her songs. What other Cranberry songs should we cover here? Let's have a great discussion. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.